About 7:30. I think we've manipulated the clock to where it reads the right time now, so we're good there. So we are called back to order. Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to have Nicole Lee lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
She looks thrilled.
She can go up to the podium if she wants.
She is so excited to hear that.
Here, Nicole.
Come on, Nicole.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sure I will pay for that later. Welcome to everyone here. And now it's time for oath of office, so I will go down first, and Mrs. Reagan's will go down after me. Oh, and I would like to call up former Councilman Bill Applegate to install me in office. Thank you.
You have the rings?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
You're probably the only one in here that fit that way.
Yeah. I'd just like to say up front that the toughest political office there is a local office. And that's because everybody knows where to find you. So think about whether you can find your assemblyman, your congressman, your senator, whatever else it is, but you can always find the local person. So that makes it a very endearing job, and you get a lot of grief sometimes for it. Well, if you're politically involved, you know a lot about the office, but if in fact you are not politically involved, what you don't realize is that what you see of a person in political office is just the tip of the iceberg, because the commitment made by all these elected officials on a local level far exceeds what anybody could imagine. So having said that, we need to thank everybody that serves. And right hand, you know what the right is? You got that covered? Did you practice? Okay. It's my honor to install Don for your last term, right?
Yes.
All right. The applause? No? No. Okay. Repeat after me. I, Don Lee, do solemnly swear.
I, Don Lee, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States of America.
And to the, that isn't what I said.
I was close.
Okay. And to the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purposes of evasion.
This you may want to read.
Yeah, that's probably.
Okay, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
I now pronounce you installed.
Installed. Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Before I say too much, I would like to introduce most of my family. One is taking finals tonight, so that probably takes precedence, but I want to thank my wife, Jean Lee, who none of this would happen without her, and she's gone through her first election, and we're still married, so it's all good. My daughter, Nicole Lee, my son, Devin Lee, and my son, Zachary Lee, who's actually here as a West High senior, so he gets to stay for the whole meeting. As you can tell, he's very excited about that. Thank you, everyone. It's always fun to get an election finished up and get it handled, and I think we represented the district well in the process, and Mrs. Reagan's and I managed to get 65% of the vote, so it looked like the community feels pretty good about what we did. The reason why Mr. Applegate installed me was a little bit of a story that I wanted to tell tonight, kind of an alpha and omega story, but it's when I was, I don't know, Bill, 21, 22 years old, I got involved in the community as a young businessman. And Mr. Applegate, who knew my father, and my father kind of thought he was fun and kind of wild, but he's old and mellow now, and the JCs and all those kinds of things. And what Mr. Applegate did is something that I think we should all do. He mentored a lot of people through this political process. You know, he had to put up with me hanging out. I'd pop in his office from time to time and sit in the chair and learn about what was going on. And a number of people did that for me, but Bill certainly was the first. And I think it's something that the community needs to do. I think we need more people involved in this process, whether it be here, whether it be the city council, whatever it may be. And I think all of us as elected officials have a responsibility to find people that can do this. Because I think to the average citizen, they're somewhat interested in it, but it looks a little more complicated sometimes than it really is to get elected. And so if we can show and get people involved in the process, I think it makes Torrance stronger. I think it makes the community stronger. The running joke is I think I'm still the 4th youngest elected official in the whole city at 59 years old. So it probably shows that we could probably get some people in here without gray hair. So, what Martha's being excluded. And so, but that's kind of why I wanted Mr. Applegate to do it. I really appreciate everything he's done with me over the last, getting close to 35, 40 years. And I want kind of the community to start to look and use us as a resource. If you've ever thought about running for office, grab one of us, we'll talk about it. Grab one of the city council people, they'll talk about it. But that's really kind of all I wanted to say, and want to thank the family again for all they do, because they allow me to do all this stuff, and they look rather pleased sitting there in the audience, so I'm sure I've gotten in the way of some television program. But we really appreciate that they're all here, and I love them all, and thank you very much.
Aww. Priorities.
Mrs. Reagan, you're next. Mrs. Reagan's. I'd like to introduce former city clerk, Torrance City Clerk Sue Herbers, to install Mrs. Reagan's.
Thank you. Okay. You're going to, is that where you want to be? Okay. Okay. You can do anything you want to do. You got elected.
Okay.
All right. And before we begin, may I just make one comment?
Please.
I agree wholeheartedly with what he said, because it's been interesting to watch people come up through the ranks and do what you're doing today, all of our elected officials. It's been a pleasure to have worked with all of them. So that's where I might be going with the next part of my retirement. So, not running. I've got gray hair. Would you like, and I am very delighted to be able to do this for you, Terry. So, here we go. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Terry Reagan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States of America
the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States of America
to the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully,
and that I will well and faithfully
and here's the part, discharge the duties upon which
discharge the duties upon which
I'm about to enter.
I'm about to enter.
That was the hard one. I did it last time too, so we make it.
Thank you so much. And it actually is very fitting that Sue is here this evening, because I had a similar thing to say to what Mr. Lee began with. I would love to see young people getting more involved in public life, but I actually want to go a little step further to say that I would love to see more women in particular involved. I sat on this panel when it was 4-1 for a fairly long period of time, and it's nice to see another woman join me. And for those of you out, this is my last term also, so it would be wonderful to see some other women step forward. And I know that's part of what Ms. Herbers is going to be working on, is trying to get folks involved in the community. I wanted to say something about something that changed for me, 12 years ago, when I first did the Pledge of Allegiance after having been sworn in, because I never really had much faith or gave much attention to government before that. And I clearly remember that first evening, after having been sworn in, and standing there shaking, saying the pledge and saying, oh my gosh, this really means something to me now. And I have to say that every time I've said the Pledge of Allegiance since then, it's been different for me. It will never be the same to say, well, it's just something you say and it's a rote thing. It means something. And as a public servant, it has been a pleasure to try to stand up to those ideals. So thank you for being here to swear me in, and I look forward to a wonderful term working with this governance team. Thanks.
Okay, we got a couple of pieces of business, and then I'll get out of this center chair. At this point, we need to have our annual organizational meeting of the board and the election of officers. We'll start with the president. I would like to nominate Martha Deutsch as the president of the board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I would like to nominate Terry Reagans as the vice president of the board. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We can't nominate ourselves. We need the clerk.
Nominate him for clerk.
Oh,
Yeah.
we were in reverse. Thank God. Thank God. I would like to nominate Don Lee as clerk of the board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Now you were asking me if I wanted to do it again.
Well, you're more than welcome to do it again.
No,
Okay, well, that's good. Okay.
Oh, you get this one back now?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so good. So I will now,
wait,
Dr.
Dr.
Mannon
Mannon.
is going up to the,
Thank you, Mr. Lee and members of the board. Mr. Lee, this has been a great year for the school district and for your memorabilia counter. Memorialized this year as board president.
oh, good. A gift of high perceived value. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Manning is secretary. Yes.
I think somebody needs it.
Oh, we're going to need to nominate Dr. Mannon
Appoint.
as the secretary of
Appoint.
the board.
Appoint.
So I just did that, and you seconded.
I
right?
second, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can have a recess.
Yes.
Good. Thank
is
you,
this the-
everyone. We will have a recess.
Okay. Musical chairs.
Standing right here behind these two chairs.
I'm sorry?
Vote.
Okay, we need to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, we moved, approved for the adoption of the agenda. Report of closed session. The Board of Education, at its meeting of December 7th, 2015, in closed session, adopted the written decision of Superintendent's designee dated December 1st, 2015, regarding classified employee case number 02-1516, that the employee be suspended without pay effective December 1st, 2015, and that the employee be terminated effective December 8th, 2015. The roll call vote was as follows. Ayes, 5. That's the report of closed session. So now we move on to the staff presentation and information. We'll start with the report from the Torrance Ed Foundation. Susan Swinburne. Hi, Susan.
Hello, good evening, and happy holidays to everyone. I'm happy to report to you today that the foundation has made disbursements totaling $62,000 to the array of schools and school teams and clubs who all went out of their way to participate vigorously in our annual Skechers Walk, which took place, as you will remember, at the end of October. We're very grateful to our partners at Skechers and all of their partners and sponsors for their generosity to the school district, the foundations in all the school districts in the South Bay. And I'll just remind everyone that it's Torrance Education Foundation's commitment that we return funding to each participating team from Torrance Unified School District to the equivalent to the number of walkers that they entice to participate. So we had 51 teams, all schools in the district, including Launch Preschool and the adult school, as well as sub-teams representing PTAs, PTSAs, sports teams, other special activity teams at many of the middle and high schools. And so those funds have been dispersed, and they're in the hands of the teams and clubs and schools, and will be used by each of those entities for the priorities that they decide they intend to use them for. So, happy to do that in this spirit of giving. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's wonderful news. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the report from the Torrance Council of PTAs, Michelle von Lerbergy.
Good evening. Congratulations on your positions. I have good evening, President Lee, so I'm going to say good evening, President Deutsch instead. School Board, Dr. Mannon, and Cabinet. On November 12th, our 30 schools turned in 893 entries to be judged at the council level for reflections. So that was fantastic. At our association meeting on February 2nd, we will recognize the first place council winners of the National PTA's Reflections Arts Recognition Contest. And we hope, usually at that time, that 33rd District will have their that we will be able to announce those students. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So we've got our fingers crossed that we might find out who's going to go on to state from 33rd District. So we're looking forward to that. We are pleased to report that at our holiday luncheon, we collected $1,500 in gift cards for local foster care for the foster teens. Our scholarship raffle brought in over $1,800, and we collected over 200 canned goods and a whole lot of toys for Torrance Fire Department and Torrance PD. So to everyone that participated, your generosity is greatly appreciated. Our units continue to work hard providing programs and parent education to their school communities and supporting the school and faculty through their volunteering and fundraising efforts. It is never too late to join PTA. I'd like to announce that Torrance right now is leading as far as councils go in numbers of memberships throughout 33rd District, so we are number 1 right now. And West High is number 4. Whoa. So we're doing really good, and I think we got over about 600 more memberships that I'll be turning in on Wednesday, so we're doing really well. So I'm very pleased to hear that. So if you haven't joined PTA, please do. It's never too late. You can stop by your local school office or go to torrancecouncilofptas.org and click on Join PTA, and that'll tell you how to get involved. So with that, does anybody have any questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, next we have the report by the student representative.
Hello and good evening, everyone. To say again, I am Mason Tier, the Torrance High ASB president, and so I will get into my announcements. This upcoming Wednesday, we have our holiday concert. It will be held in our little theater, and our choir will be performing. This Thursday, we have our teacher talent list show, in which our faculty and other members will be performing to entertain our students. It'll be $5, and it'll be held in our auditorium from 7 to 8 p.m. All the proceeds will go towards our Operation Gift. And then our Operation Gift is a program that we started to, we receive donations from our school clubs and other outside benefactors, and we will be getting gift cards for families in need this holiday season. Our next event would be, we have kids from Japan coming through a program with Honda. They'll be coming December 29th, and they will actually be visiting Torrance High on December 7th. They're staying in Torrance with a homestay program, I believe. And then also on December 7th, which is our all-school rally, we'll have a spirit rally, and we have spirit weeks going on, and luckily the Japanese students will be able to be a part of that and witness what we do at Torrance High.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our public hearing. Public hearing on the Torrance Unified School District statutory school facility fees, including alternative school facility fees, quote, reportable fees, unquote. Report for fiscal year 2014-2015 in compliance with Government Code 66006 and 66001. I'd like to open that up. If anyone would like to speak to that? No? We have none, so I would like to go ahead and close that. I'd like to move on to oral communications, non-agenda items, instructions to the public. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public. In order to discuss district business in an orderly manner, for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly, the board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including 1, speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. 2, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another. 3, when addressing the board, speakers are requested to state their name, address the president from the podium, and adhere to the applicable time limits. 4, complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. Okay, I have requests to address the board. Julie Schenkel and Deb Tabouche from organization is TTA.
Good evening, Cabinet and members of the board. I, Deborah Tabouche, am the State Council Representative for the Torrance Teachers Association.
And I'm Julie Schenkel, President of the Torrance Teachers Association.
Tonight, we would like to start by congratulating Terry and Dawn on their re-election. And we would like to extend that congratulations to our new Board of Education members.
We at the Torrance Teachers Association supported you and your platforms through this contentious election cycle. Having met with each of you in the past few months, we appreciate the dialogue that has been shared and continues to be shared on our shared issues. When Terry and Dawn visited our October Representative Council meeting, they were actually able to witness our democratic process in action and how we collect information and data from our teachers. And I hope it was a good situation, a good eye-opening situation for you guys, because I know that our members really appreciated seeing you there. Our issues are very important to us, and when we come and speak to you all regarding our issues, we speak for 1,200 educators in this community. And we look forward to continuing that dialogue, as well as seeing your platforms and your vision enacted in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I have Arlette Rojas, parent.
Sorry, that's my daughter's alarm for bed. Hello, Cabinet, School Board. My name is Arlette Rojas, and I am a parent of a student at Carr Elementary. And I'm here because I've had a few issues with the school, the principal, the teacher, and a few others that I've tried to reach and, have somebody do something about what's going on. I feel like my daughter's not getting the education that she should be. And I just feel like kindergarten is a very important year for any child, not only mine. And it's just, my child is regressing now. She's actually getting lower grades than she was last year. And I've tried, numerous attempts to have somebody listen, and it's just not getting me anywhere. My daughter doesn't even want to go to school. She cries every day. And it's just, I don't know. It's too much to handle, and I'm here to see if I could get some help.
Okay.
There's just a few observations. I have some letters. I'm sorry, I'm like super nervous.
It's okay.
But I have letters from other parents, which we've tried to get a hold of and, just try to prove our point and get our message heard. And it's not getting us anywhere. And right now, it's been about 3 months that the kids have been in school, and they're still learning their ABCs, which they learned. My daughter learned that last year for TK. So, I don't know where else to go. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Ken?
Direction.
Dr. Stowe.
Dr. Stowe?
Yes, Ms. Rojas and Dr. Liberati and I spoke before the meeting, and I'm going to follow through and make sure she has a meeting with the principal at the school as well as the teacher, and follow up with Dr. Kim as well. It would be nice if, I don't know if we can get copies of those letters, if you can leave those tonight, if they're copies,
I
or...
brought one copy. Sorry.
Okay, or, right, if you can give those to me and I can make copy and return those to you, just so that we have further documentation, would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you
really
for
appreciate
your
it.
candidness. Okay. All right, I have no other unscheduled hearing forms, so I'm going to move on to the discussion action items. Instructions to the public. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 2 to 4 listed in oral communications. 14.2, appointment of board representatives to district, community, and professional committees. Okay, so we have committee representatives. We're going to vote. So I need a motion.
Does anyone have any preferences as to what they...
I'm almost inclined to say, if everybody's okay with it, maybe make one motion that everybody's last year assignments carry forward to 15, 16?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is that enough of a?
It is.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Action item 14.3, approval of proposed board policies update, October 2015 revisions, first reading. I need a motion?
I'd like to make a motion and waive the second reading.
Correct.
Second.
Any discussion?
So was the motion, sorry, was the motion just to waive second or to approve?
To approve.
First
Approve
and-
waive the second
okay.
reading.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Action item number 14.4, approval to accept the resignation of Nathan Mintz from the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee and advertise to fill the current vacancy. Dr. Stabler?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need,
So
a
moved.
motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Thank you very much. Nathan Mintz, who was the tax association representative on the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee, has given us a resignation letter, and so we need to fill his position. At the same time, we have Jess Flores, who has been on for three consecutive terms, is also going off the committee, so we will be bringing forward to you, we're going to be advertising and bringing it forward to you in January to select two new members. One is Homeowners Association, and other would be the Taxpayers Association, and those will be coming to you in December. What you're doing today is accepting Nathan's resignation.
Explain about Jesse.
And Jesse will be coming back, and I'm sure he will reapply, but we have to go through a complete process for you to reelect him if he wants to. Once they're on six, they can serve 3 consecutive 2-year terms without any action by the board, but if they go longer, then you need to reappoint him officially through an and there has to be an advertisement put out for it.
Mr. Lee?
Just because of the outreach, typically, when city commissions are appointed, it's always in January, and everybody knows about the process and everything else. So we'll go through a normal advertising process, notify the homeowners association,
Yes.
those kinds of things.
Yes, it'll start right after this. We'll be putting out the advertisement immediately, and then we'll bring the names to you in January.
Okay, can you CC the board on the outreach, what groups, that
Sure.
kind of stuff? Thank you very much.
Any other questions from the board members? Okay.
Actually, I did have one clarification.
Mrs.
You said
Rickens?
you'd be bringing it to us in December. Did you mean
No,
January?
I mean, December is when
When period would
you're
open.
taking this, and then we will bring you the actual people who have asked to be on the committee in January.
So if somebody out there wants to apply, it's this month that they should look
It's
for
during
the
the month of
application?
It's now and during the month of January, and then we'll bring the names to you in January.
Closing January 7th is what the item
Yes.
says, right? Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, action item carried. Okay, action item 14.5, approve the positive certification of the first interim report for 2015-2016.
Move to
Need a motion?
approve.
Move to approve, second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Stabler?
Thank you very much. Before you tonight is the first interim report for Torrance Unified School District. AB 1200 requires that we give 2 of these reports to you yearly, one at this time, and then a second one in March that is called the second interim financial report. Some of the assumptions that are within this report that you have in your agenda: statutory COLA. This last year it was 1.02%. It's estimated at 1.6 for 16-17, 2.48 for 17-18. Also included here are gap funding percentage, which was set at 51.52% for this fiscal year, and the estimates for 16-17 and 17-18. You also see the ADA, average daily attendance, that is used in the local control funding formula. The note at the bottom, as we've discussed on numerous times since the LCFF started, there are 2 primary estimates on what the gap funding will be. One of them is put out by the Department of Finance. Theirs tend to be higher than School Services of California. We have always used School Service of California until we get later on and it's more definite that it looks like Department of Finance estimates or what will be actually used. And so we'll get that information in the governor's budget in January as it moves forward to May. But right now, this report has the School Services of California estimates in it. Some of the assumptions, as you're probably aware, both of the retirement systems, CalSTRS and CalPERS, have instituted, one through legislation and one through a board action, have legislated significant increases in the rate that they're charging to school districts. And that's because both of these systems were having fiscal insecurity problems, and so we have to allocate these increasing amounts every year into the interim process. We are going in accounting for adult ed programs. It's going to be, it was in the unrestricted fund. It was under the ability for the district to use those funds. We're going to be moving those funds back into the adult ed fund based on the new CD8 guidelines. Remember now there is the Adult Ed Court Consortium, which includes our adult ed programs in this area, and El Camino. And so we have to move that funding back into the adult ed fund. We also are asking you tonight to commit parts of our unrestricted general fund balance for specific activities that we're required to fund. One of them is a Qualified Zone Academy bond program, the targeted student group funds, student achievement, teacher credentialing textbooks, and Common Core implementation and other one-time expenses. This is a requirement that came out of Proposition 2, which was the institution of the Rainy Day Fund. School districts had, under that proposition, it also, there was legislation passed that required school districts should not carry forward more than 2 times their reserve. Our minimum reserve requirement is 3%, so if that's ever implemented, we could not have a reserve higher than 6%. If you remember during the recession, we had a reserve of about 25-26% that allowed us make it through that recession. It's never I know the board's intent is to keep it near the 3%, but one of the things that is part of that legislation is requirement to commit certain funds that aren't part of that reserve requirement. They're outside the reserve requirement. Multi-year projection, you can see what our revenue looks like in 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. You might be asking yourself, why in 15-16 is it higher than 16-17 and 17-18 when in fact we're looking at increases, whether it's COLA or gap closure? Remember, this year the governor allocated what we're calling one-time funds. It's a repayment of the mandate cost debt that the state of California has for school districts. It was about $14 million that our school district received. So that's why you see that much more money in 15-16 than you do the other 2 out years. You can see expenditures, $155 million up to $159 million in 17-18. That does not include any salaries for any school districts. This is just this is just step and column and regular cost increases that we have every year. And you can see what happens with our ending budget. We are this year positive $9 million again, but that's because of the one-time funds. And then you can see going into 16, 17, 17, and 18, we are showing deficit financing in those 2 years. Multi-year projection again, beginning fund balance, ending fund balance. You can see what's happening in each one of those years. And again, there's no salary increases included in those at all. It's just moving forward 1 year to the next. Here we have some of the commitments that I talked about previously, the amount of money that is being committed for student achievement, teacher credentialing textbooks, Common Core implementation, and other one-time expenditures, and then the committed for targeted students under the local control funding formula, and those include the increases, the proposed increases based on school services. Reserve for economic uncertainties in each one of these years. You can see the dollar amount, you can see the percentages. Important year, 17-18, at this time it's 6.8%. Remember, our requirement is a minimum of 3%, and you can see how much money is above the 3% reserve requirement at this time. What's next? Your consideration to approve this first interim positive certification. Our choices are a positive certification, or a middle certification, or a negative certification, obviously, because we are showing positive throughout the 3 years, where our recommendation is a positive certification. We will begin negotiations with all bargaining units in the months to come. January, we'll have the governor's budget, and March, we'll bring back a second interim financial report. Any questions?
Mr. Steffen?
Yeah, earlier that there are two different groups that make estimates on the COLA, and we use...
School Services and Department of Finance, yes.
Can you give us a rough, I'm on a slide, it says it's 1.02 for next year, 1.6, 2.4.
That's the COLA, that's not the LCFF projection. The LCF...
Oh, that's the COLA, that's what I'm...
That's the COLA. That comes from the Department of Finance, and we don't go away from that. Those don't change.
Right.
It's the LCFF gap estimate. As this year was 51%, you can see that in both the 2 out years, Department of Finance is around 35-36%, whereas School Services next year is recommending about 12%, and then in the final out year, about 18%. School Services tends to be very conservative, and as we've mentioned before, if districts do use the Department of Finance, then the Los Angeles County Office of Education requires that you show how you're going to make, if that 35% is not met, how the district is going to make up that reserve requirement in the out years. That's why at this time, on the first interim, we use the lower percentage, because they don't require that at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Lee?
I think in the bad times, School Services was probably the pretty good indicator. It seems like things have turned the other way, and we're looking at increasing revenues every year. The Department of Finance numbers have been a little closer to...
They have been, yes.
So as we go through this process, will we switch to how we want to do it? Will we just use School Services on these slides? Will we show both?
We can show them both, and as we move forward, depending on what happens if you just saw the Legislative Analyst Office just in middle of November came out with their estimates, and they were very, very positive. And so as we move forward, yes, if it looks like Department of Finance's numbers are better, we will move to those estimates, definitely.
And as a follow-up, we've got Prop 30 expiring in 2019?
Part of it is ending in 2017, another part in 2018, and that's part of the issues. There are discussion in Sacramento right now about, there are some plans to provide legislation and or another proposition to, there are two plans out there right now to continue Prop 30. One of them is forever, and another one is for, I think is for 10 years. But this includes the reduction of Prop 30, because California is doing is doing so well financially right now. These estimates for, going into that 17-18 year include the elimination of the first part of the Prop 30 funding.
It is my understanding, and just from where we were last weekend, that actually that the school lobby folks got in with the competing proposition, which was to deal with some healthcare issues, and that they've come up with a new unified proposition that will take it out 12 years, if what memory serves me right, 12 years
There's
out,
one for
without the sales tax, but with the income tax
for the higher
built
levels.
into it.
Yes.
So, and I guess from what they had said, it was polling around 65%. Now, we're a little early on that, but that's a pretty good number to start with. And given the turnout models in November, I kind of think that one's got a pretty good shot at least moving forward.
Yeah, and like I said, there are two of them right now that I'm aware of, and that was one of them.
Okay, so will school services or Department of Finance allow you to, or can we guesstimate going forward what those numbers look like, just from a planning standpoint?
Including Prop 30?
Well, including what is the projected Prop 30 replacement.
Okay. I can
I mean,
find
it'd just
out.
be interesting to see what that math will look
Yeah.
like going out, because I know that we're gonna, as we go through negotiations and salary negotiations and everything else, we're gonna start seeing red numbers when, in fact, maybe the red numbers aren't gonna be there, given.
Depending on what happens in November. Yes, actually, we have a conference call on Thursday in which, I'm sure we'll be discussing that. And then I'm at a meeting and Ron Bennett from School Services and Steve Ward from our consortium are both at that meeting on Friday, and I will ask that question.
Good, okay, just keep the board in the loop as that process goes
Definitely.
forward. Thank you.
Mrs. Reagan?
So actually, along the lines that Mr. Lee was saying, so that makes the picture look a little rosier. But having just been at CSBA this weekend, the California School Boards Association, they were emphasizing the CalSTRS and the CalPERS contributions and the magnitude that will represent in whatever increase we get. Much of it will probably be going to that contribution.
One of the major issues that the consortium that we as Torrance are one of the primary members for, we call it erosion, and the retirement taxes are one of the primary reasons for the erosion. If you see on there, they're down in the 13% range as we move up. It goes up to 20% for STRS and pretty close to that for PERS in the final out years.
So it might actually be it would be useful for me to get absolute dollars in terms of what our contributions that we can project would actually be, instead of percentages, because it's hard to see dollar signs in the
Right.
percentages, and I know it represents a large amount of money.
And we have that information because that's what used to give the projection. Okay, we
Thanks.
can get you the dollar
Thanks.
amounts, definitely.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Stabler? Okay, all those in favor?
Thank you
say
very much.
aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you, Dr. Stabler. All right, 14.6, adopt resolution number AS-09-1516 of the Board of Education of the Torrance Unified School District authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $65,375,000 aggregate principal amount of bonds of Torrance Unified School District by a negotiated sale pursuant to a bond purchase agreement, prescribing the terms of sale, approving the form of and authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement and a continuing disclosure certificate, approving the form of and authorizing the distribution of an official statement for the bonds, and authorizing the execution of necessary documents and certificates and related actions. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Stabler?
Yes, thank you very much. This is the final sale of our Measure Y. As you're aware, we passed it in 2008. Actually, these bonds would not have been sold until around 2017-18, but because of what's happened within the market and as we've been doing our program, we've been able to move these up. And each time they've moved up, there's been some advantages both for the district and for the taxpayer. With us today are John Isom from Isom Advisors and Randy Merritt from GK Baum, and they're here to answer any questions you might have about the sale.
Okay. Mr. Lee?
Just one quick question. I assume the rating agencies kept us the same and proved us, do we know yet? You're going to have to go to the
Excuse me,
microphone.
Go to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, prior to Thanksgiving, we met with the rating agencies, with members of the administration, George and Don, both with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. The expectation is that sometime next week, we should be getting a rating back from them. We've given them a little bit more time because of the timing of when we expect to take these bonds to market. Based on what we presented, based on what was shared, some of the indications that were given from the rating analysts, our expectation is that we would, at a minimum, affirm or keep the same ratings, the same strong ratings that we had previously.
Okay, cool, that's good to hear. And then, just a last comment, because 7 years ago, we sat up here and were pretty excited that we passed Y and Z, and it, in some ways, seems like it was a couple of weeks ago. In other ways, I guess it's kind of like women remembering and forgetting childbirth maybe, but in other ways, it seems like it was a long time away, a long time ago, because it was certainly that was the tough campaign to convince this community that we could do this and execute on a bond like this, and we're getting towards the end of it, and I think we've done a pretty good job executing it, and we've met our financial commitments, both in, rate per 100,000 and getting projects done on time and on budget. So I want to thank everybody who was involved in that, and thank the citizens of Torrance, because they're the ones paying for it, and we're trying to give them a good product back. Thank you.
Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, so we're selling the last of Measure Y bonds, but we're also refinancing some of the bond. Is that right? That's in the language.
Not on this one.
No, there's no refinance on that.
And the district now desires to refinance portions of the outstanding prior bonds? It says in the last paragraph in the item?
Yeah, either that was an oversight or that is standard to just allow for the flexibility, but at this point in time, there hasn't been any outstanding GO bonds that are contemplated. Typically, when a resolution is approved, you have about 6 months. Certain things come up, interest rates come up, there's volatility in the market, and you don't necessarily keep to the timeline that you hoped for. So either, again, this would have been perhaps an oversight by bond counsel or standard language for them to provide that flexibility that should 3 or 4 or 5 months from now, interest rates were to become much, much lower, and all of a sudden there might be some bonds to be refunded. But at this current time, there's no contemplation to refund any of the outstanding bonds.
Okay.
There's no refinance.
No.
Okay, so the paragraph does belong there or does not belong there is my
I think
question.
it's standard legal language
Okay,
for the resolution.
because then it says financial impact is costs associated with refinancing or paid from the bonds. So it goes on to, in fact,
It
address that issue.
It would in fact be paid that way if you were refinancing, which we're not.
Okay, it's a little confusing to me that it's there, but we're not doing that.
Understood. I think it's just the common language that they use. And Mr. Field's not here tonight, or otherwise, I'm sure he can answer that question for you.
Okay,
Generally, what you see with not just the resolution, but the attached form documents is fairly broad language. The preliminary official statement is yet to be completed, the bond purchase agreement is yet to be completed, the continuing disclosure certificate is yet to be completed. They're all in what's called form. And until the financing is complete, those documents are yet to be complete. So usually, the standard practice is to provide the greatest flexibility to say, if there was this, this is how it would work. If there was this, this is how that would work. But ultimately, you're providing direction on the resolution, which through its approval will also approve the associated form documents. So it just gives us, again, it gives us that framework by which to go by without necessarily obligating or committing the district to do something that, at this point in time, we don't have any intent to do.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to action item 14.7, approval to adopt resolution number AS-10-1516 of the Board of Education of the Torrance Unified School District relating to information made available to the public in the form of a statutory school facility fees, including alternative school facility fees, quote, reportable fees, unquote, report for fiscal year 2014-2015, quote, reportable fees report, unquote, and findings thereon in compliance with Government Code 66006 and 66001. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Stabler?
Yes. The resolution before you here is for you to approve the, for statutory, what are called statutory facility fees. In common terms, these are what we call developer fees. These are the fees that are charged for new development and/or reconstruction of either homes or apartments or industrial and commercial. There's a different rate for each one. We have to complete this report in order to qualify, in order to utilize, in order to collect these funds. They're primarily used for any portable projects, additional growth projects within a school site, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stabler. Mr. Lee?
Just because I'm going to bring it up, we still hear from time to time, maybe I do because I'm the insurance guy, of the city's ability to get a one-day policy and our inability to provide a one-day policy. Is that still the way it is, or can we still do
Policy
one-day?
relative to what?
Well, in other words, if you're going to rent a school, let's say a homeowners association is going to rent a school for a meeting. You know,
Okay.
they go in, they fill out the paperwork, then you have to show proof of insurance, $1
Correct.
million in coverage. If you do that at the city of Torrance, they say, well, just fill out this form and pay so much money and you got that policy. I know we had talked about that, I just never really followed up on whether we do that.
We do. We have two sources. Keenan and Associates provides one, also Alliant, which is actually our third party.
carrier,
Both of them
yeah.
have the ability to provide it, and what we do if somebody needs that, then what I do is get them in contact with either Keenan or Alliant, and we've actually done it. I've done it probably since September about 3 different times.
Yeah. Do you know approximately what that cost is?
I don't, because because we're not even involved, I just get the two entities in contact with each other so they can
Okay, I just
work
hadn't
it out.
followed up on it for a while, so thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Warmers?
Mr. Lee was saying that you go to the city and you go, hi, I'd like to rent this, part of the Toyota meeting hall or whatever. Or better yet, the airport room there. It's $36 if you're a nonprofit. And they say, okay, fill out these forms, this covers your insurance, You don't have to talk to anyone but the person across the counter. What you're describing is something entirely different. We have to get in touch with an outside firm, we have to contact them, negotiate rates, et cetera, with them. Are we ever going to get to where we're at with the city? Is that what you were talking about, Mr. Lee?
Well, I mean, I don't know, I mean, yeah.
Don't get me
I mean,
wrong,
it would be-
what you're
it'd be
describing,
nice.
Dr. Stabler, works fairly well. You can, like you said, Keenan Associates are very, responsive, et cetera, but it'd be really nice if we could actually just walk up to TUSD and go, hi, I'd like to rent a gymnasium or a cafeteria, and we get told this is the price to do it, and then they walk away.
Well, we have the prices for it, but it does not include, the one element that we don't provide is the insurance.
I thought that's what Mr. Lee was talking
It
about.
is, but we don't provide it as part of our fee process. We have all the other elements of the fee process, whether it's the labor component for a custodian, whether it's depending on the type of group they are, whether they're a group 1, group 2, or group 3.
Okay, I
There's rates
guess
for that.
I was
but
misunderstanding,
We
Mr.
don't
Lee.
have the insurance, and I don't know whether, I can do some checking to see if we could internally have that rate sheet, but then it would have to be done through an outside, I don't know how the city, I'll even check with the city and find out how you.
I may be making this more complicated than it needs to be. I thought Mr. Lee was asking why we don't do it the way the city does, but I guess that wasn't your question.
I think
It
it's
sort of
that-
was, but I sort of got a different answer, so I left it alone.
I mean, we
I
can
don't have the
do it.
propensity to do that.
Yeah, no, we can provide, we can find a source to provide it. What you're saying is find a way that we might be able to provide that same service. I'll check into it.
If you could, I mean, it would be, there's fantastic convenience for it, other than, having been part of the, at one time, we used to do that. At one time, I was part of an HOA, and I'd go talk to a principal and say, I want the cafeteria, and then I'd fill out a form and write a $25 check, and then I'd have access to that cafeteria.
And that was early on when we found out that our insurance advisors strongly recommended against that, because basically what it was is they were paying $25 to be included as part of the Torrance Unified Insurance Policy. And our insurance advisors strongly recommended that we separate that so that that individual group has their own insurance, and Torrance Unified is listed as an additional insured, which is our requirement.
Okay. Like I said, I'm sorry, I'm making this much more
But I will
complicated than it
check on
needs
if
to be.
there's a way that we can,
I was building after Mr. Lee's
Yeah.
question, so.
Well,
Mr.
and
Lee.
as a follow-up, and if you rent any of these facilities as an individual, not as an organization, but as an individual, so I'm going to have a birthday party for somebody in one of our facilities or something like that, in that situation, your homeowner's policy will provide the coverage. Just call your agent, they'll type up a certificate and shoot it over, and it's pretty simple stuff. My office is in downtown Torrance. So people don't always know that their homeowners policy would provide that. And then certainly the homeowners associations, if they have their own insurance policies, which we hope they do, then it's just a matter of free endorsement as well. So I just know that there's an exception, so it had come up recently, so I thought I would bring it up.
Okay.
Again, I didn't mean to muddy the waters. I was perhaps misunderstanding Mr. Lee. So,
Okay, any other questions from our board members?
no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Last, 14.8, approve emergency resolution number AS-11-1516 for removal and disposal of hazardous pigeon guano at Torrance High School. Can I entertain a motion, please?
I so moved.
And
Second.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Stabler?
Yes, during the investigation that was going on over at Torrance High School during the modernization project, it was found that in the attic areas of the annex, and it's about 16,200 square feet, there has been significant, I think a pretty good period of time, there's been significant guano because of the access the birds have had to that area. In order to get it cleaned as rapidly as possible, it didn't give us, we would have had to gone to official bid, or what we could do is go for what's called an emergency resolution. As long as I have concurrence from you as board members, I go to the Los Angeles County Office of Education, they give me the approval, then I can go ahead and get the contractor started on it right away, so it's taken care of when they're doing the other work, and that's what we're doing here. We're asking you to approve the emergency resolution. For it to be approved, I need a unanimous vote.
Mr. Steffen?
Along with the removal, there's a remediation process
Definitely.
going on, screening and all that kind of
Yes,
stuff going on.
that was part of the original work that was going on, that was going to go on there. So it was just when they found this problem, we needed to, take care of it first before they could finish up.
Mr. Lee?
So basically guano constitutes an emergency.
Yes.
Nothing.
You just wanted to say guano.
I just wanted to say emergency.
Oh.
And guano in the
In the
same
same
sentence, yes.
You are
Mrs.
a lame duck,
Reagans.
Mr. Lee.
So that means that this was not an issue that we anticipated when we created the plan for renovations for Torrance High School?
Not at all.
All right, now I hesitate to ask this question, but how do we know it's pigeons rather than seagulls? Because there's tons of seagulls
They roost inside.
around the high school, too.
I can't answer that question. I don't,
I hesitate to ask.
I know, I
Were any
can't
pigeons
answer that
harmed
question.
in the-
I was just, I was told, originally, ever since we got the quote and everything else, that it is a pigeon. I didn't ask
think
if
I
there
don't
was a
wanna know
different
how to-
variety of bird or not.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, thank you, Dr. Stabler. Okay, consent agenda, we'll move on to that. Approval of consent agenda as a whole.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
There's a couple things I want to highlight, but I can do that later.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, we will have approved the consent agenda as a whole. Moving on to the information. A board calendar is there for the school board. Certification of results of the Torrance Unified School District election consolidated with the local and municipal consolidated elections of November 3rd, 2015. Again, congratulations. Revisions to administrative rules, October 2015 revisions. Okay, we move on to the comments from members of the Board of Education. Report from the board's representative to the Southern California Regional Occupational Center, Mrs. Terry Reagans.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on the SoCal Rock application for the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant that I talked about at the last meeting. Part one of the application was submitted on November 30th, and they will be asking us for a signed MOU to make sure that they have our approval to go forward with the second part of the grant process, which will be, hopefully they will pass the first part of the process, so that will be a necessity down the road. And they are looking at hiring potentially a grant writing assistant to help with that process, since that's been a difficult process for them to do. I did want to let you know that on November 20th, there were 2 members of the Department of Finance staff, including Michael Cohen, the director of the Department of Finance, and Jeff Bell, the program budget manager from the Department of Finance, that visited SoCal Rock. And I had the pleasure of accompanying them on a tour and discussing the issues of funding at SoCal Rock with them, and comparing our situation with the only other regional occupational center in the state of California, that is Metro Ed, and talking about funding issues and how, in fact, to make the center solvent so that it can continue to operate. So they have SoCal Rock on their radar. They know that we are struggling with this, but are attempting to assist us with that process. At the same time, the SoCal Rock Budget Subcommittee has met, and they have finalized the amount of the augmentation grant monies that they're expecting or anticipating from each of the Joint Powers Authority districts to help them to function for this coming year. And they are expecting payment from each of the districts, at least in part by January 15th, and then in full by June 1st. But the saga goes on, and I believe that we may be moving forward into actually making a plan for creating some sort of a funding stream, if that is a possible thing to be doing in the next year or so. Something I had hoped we'd be started well on the way a couple years ago, and finally moving into that phase perhaps here. But still counting on getting the CTE incentive grant, so we'll see how all of that works out. And that's about it for SoCal Rock. I do have a couple of other things. Should I go ahead and do those at this stage of the game?
Please.
Yes.
One of those is the classified anniversaries that I wanted to make sure and have an opportunity to announce. For 10 years of accredited service, the anniversary increments for Suzanne Allison, Maisha Allams, Tresia Belfaisan, Rosa Garduna, Norman Harvey, Doreen Labato, Daryl Masuyama, Tammy Nakanishi, and Mark Plum, a familiar name. And for 15 years of accredited service, we have Penny Dambara, Barbara Duda, and Sherry Weissman. And for 25 years of service, Cynthia Eloriaga, special ed staff specialist, been around with us for a long period of time. And thanks to those folks for providing that service. And I did want to highlight one thing that went by on consent, just because it's kind of a milestone for us. The ExxonMobil Pegasus Awards were listed, $100,000 worth of grant monies that are being supplied to our teachers for really innovative and cool programs that they will be bringing to our students on behalf of monies provided by ExxonMobil. And this will be the last installment of the ExxonMobil Pegasus grants, since they will no longer be a presence in our neighborhood, we expect, after this year. So that's the end of that grant program. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagan. Mr. Steffen?
Only in that I was able to attend the ExxonMobil event. And there was, once again, it's a bunch of wonderful teachers having incredible ideas. I think the presenters were more impressed with the names the teachers gave their various projects, rather original. But it was a nice event.
Thank you, Mr. Steffen. Mr. Lee?
A couple of things. The first one is, and it's been, I mean, every time we get audited, we kind of deal with this issue as well. Torrance Unified School District has a number of organizations that basically exist to support us, but aren't directly accountable to us, whether it be the Ed Foundation or, you know, alumni associations or booster groups or these kinds of groups. And there's been some questions that have come up, and to some extent, we have no administrative authority over them, yet they're using the name of our schools, our organizations, and I think 99% of them, everything's great. But we need to look at some sort of an accountability process for these organizations, and just to make sure, at a minimum, they get their tax returns in on time, you know, the processes are being followed. There's some accountability to their members, maybe not to us, but at least certainly to their donors. And I'd like to see what we can do to look at that, just because it's a little loose, it's a little out there. I mean, we have some high schools that have 20 booster clubs, we have other high schools that have one booster club. You know, we have alliances at some schools, we have active alliances at some school, we have inactive alliances at other schools. So just so that, you know, if a citizen or a parent or something comes up and talks to us, we can at least say, well, yeah, at least we know they're filing tax returns and they can report out to the people that they need to report out to. That's item number one. Item number two is a little more complicated. There's been back and forth with the city of Torrance and ExxonMobil, over safety protocols and a lot of complicated things that, quite frankly, I don't always understand. But having been on the council back when the consent decree was kind of put together, I do remember parts of it, and it appears as if the modifier to the hydrofluoric acid has been changed since the council approved it. Has not. So my concern is that when the council looked at it in that period of time, obviously we were concerned about what happened at the refinery, but the other thing we were equally as concerned about was the transportation risk, because the railroad tracks right behind us carry hydrofluoric acid to and from the Mobile refinery, and that those train tracks, you know, run obviously close to Torrance Elementary School, Torrance High School. You know, you get up in the north side of town, you know, it's certainly within a number of schools as it comes through town. And I'd like to at least revisit our safety protocols and what we do, especially in light of the most recent event at Mobile, where again, I was standing next to Dr. Mannon at a football game and nobody knew what was going on. We've got people that were on the north end in a school event outside. We all have our phones and the safety things that are supposed to come out on it, and there just seemed to be general confusion. So I think in light of, quite frankly, I don't know what's going on at Mobile, to tell you the truth, in light of some recent things, but I think maybe this gives us the impotence to maybe talk to the fire department, talk to Mobile, talk to everybody involved, and see if we need to revisit our safety protocols, whether we need to revisit how all of these things are handled going forward, because at least with the hydrofluoric acid, at least with the modified hydrofluoric acid, the modification keeps it from spreading, because it has a tendency to come out in a gas form and then hug the ground and then move, and move the way that the wind is blowing. And that was the major concern with the consent decree, was the modification that's put inside of it. Obviously, the more modification, the less it moves. Clearly, the amount of modification in the product has been changed from what we're hearing. So I want to be able to see what the assumptions were then and whether we need to change the assumptions now. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Just to add to that, would that be something that we would be working with ExxonMobil to find out the safety protocol, or? A fire department first, okay. Thank you, Dr. Mannon. Any other comments from our school board? Mr. Wormers?
Nope, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. All right, if we have no further comments, I would like someone to make a motion, please.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, I adjourn this meeting at 8:49, and I'd like to immediately call to order the Torrance Unified School District Public Facilities Corporation. Elections of officers for the Board of Directors. Section 2.1, authorization to elect officers for the 2016 Board of Directors of the District's Public Facilities Corporation. The officers would be the same as on the board, as well as Dr. Mannon as secretary.
So moved.
Second.
And Dr. Stabler as treasurer.
So modified.
And second.
Can I guess, okay. All those in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion? No? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Okay, it's been approved. I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 8:50.
So
Can I
moved.
move? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Good, you get to sign your name
Good
1,000 times now.
Okay.
So here, mine went away, my board docs went away.
What'd you do to it?
And
You
then
did
when I
something
went
to it.
back to it, this is what it